Hey everyone, this is the video for part 2 of learning Rhino. So I left off with starting with kind of geometry. Um, we're actually going to go over my modeling kind of stance and tactics and methodology and kind of workflow I use. So the workflow I use usually is I start with curves, then I move on to surfaces, and then I change that surface into a poly surface to give it some thickness and make it solid. And you'll understand what I mean when I go over part 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to split them up from curves and then surfaces and then poly surface. I'm going to split them up into 3 videos. So let's go over curves. So curves inherently are Rhino's biggest quote-unquote strength, in my opinion, in terms of how you can kind of use curves to model actual solid objects. So let's think. For example, I can draw one right now. So I go in top view, and I'm going to redraw this box. Let's say a box. So I can actually just do line, and then draw a curve. And I'm going to turn on ortho to make sure it's straight. So I'm just going to draw a box. And you can actually use object snap. If I do that, it'll actually snap perfectly in terms of that's parallel with this, and then you can click this and create that box. So we're working with curves. You can do, and then what you can do is I have 4 separate curves. So I want this to be all one continuous curve, like a closed curve is what they call it. What you can do is highlight all the line geometry and type in join, and this will join all the curves together into one closed curve. This is useful, and what you can do with this is then create your surface geometry from this. Now let's say I want something more complicated, not just a box or a line, or let's say I don't want to keep clicking line each time to make a geometry. Let's say I want some shape that's angular but not just a bunch of lines. So literally instead of just doing this and then typing line again and then typing line again, typing line again, and making that. One thing I forgot to say. When you're drawing something flat, and you want, instead of doing the triangle method I just showed and doing this, you can do line. And I know I want this to be ortho. As you can see, it says 37.6 and then 0 degrees on ortho, which means it is perpendicular to this, and orthographic, right? Which means straight, or completely, yeah, straight. So what you do if you hit the tab key on your keyboard, tab, it'll keep it snapped to, it'll snap to, let's say this, but it'll still keep it straight and it won't angle towards that. As you can see, it's not doing that. So we just click that. And then we can do line here and then do the same thing. But let's say we don't want to do it that way. Let's say we want to have some different geometry. So what you can do instead is type in polyline and actually start drawing out the profile you'd want as a polyline. And usually I turn off ortho for this because not everything's going to be completely straight. So we can actually start to make a random geometry. And let's say at the end of the day I want it to be a closed curve. So let's just draw it out. And then just this is completely random, by the way. There's nothing I'm doing here. That's what's it called? Planned. So I click that. As you can see, it says one curve added to selection, which this is one solid curve, or not one closed curve. As you can see, polylines don't have to be closed. You can draw, like, if I draw this, and then let's say I'm done. I hit enter, and it'll be done. So you can draw a continuous curve without typing line, type line, type line, type line, and then type line. You don't have to do that. You can actually just use polyline. Now, let's say I want some curves. Like, it has the name curve. I want something curvy, not just curve. Because the definition of curve is it can be straight or angular, or straight, angular, or open. Because this is still a curve, but it's not wavy. It doesn't have the waviness to it. So there's 2 ways you can do this. I'll show you one way that I know, and then one way that I 100% of the time use, because it's just, in my opinion, so much better. You can do this key right here. I don't know. I don't use it often. That's the only reason why I'm clicking it. I think it's literally just called curve. So you type in curve, hit enter, start of curve. So let's say here, and then next point, and then now this point will influence the curve. So now they're influenced by that curve. And now we have our curve, as you can see. So, and you're like, that's cool, but I want it to snap exactly to that curve points. Now, I don't want them to be influenced. I want them to be actually like snap to it. So, the one I use 100% of the time, I've never used that before, besides just showing you guys actually, is interpret curve. So you do INTERP curve. And you can do the same. It starts the same way. Start of curve, next point, and instead of it being influenced, it's actually latched. And then we can continue. And then you can stop it by hitting enter. And you can change the degree, which is like the amount of curvature it has. So we can change it to like 5. And as you can see, it's a little more sharp. It doesn't make too much of a difference, so I really don't change it that often. But yeah, you have your curve. And that's pretty much it. So that's it for curves. Almost. I have one more thing. So let's say I like this, but I wanted this to be a little bit downwards. I don't want to redo the whole thing. So you're like, okay, is there a way I can edit it? And the answer is yes, you can edit it. So that's the great part about curves. Before you make it solid, you can easily edit it and then make it solid. And that's what I love about curves. Working with curves is so much easier. So I would click on the curve I'd want to edit, and I'd see these points kind of randomly protruding out, as you can see. I want this a little more down. So what I can do is I can click this, and in the last tutorial we went over gumball, so we can actually use gumball to easily kind of move these move it straight down, perpendicular, or parallel to the y-axis or the x-axis, as you can see from here. So we can literally click and just drag it down. And let's say I want this over here, you can see, just drag it. Let's say I actually want this one now, a little bit here. And now you can actually start to shape your geometry, and that's the beauty in curves. It's just the control you have is so nice. And then let's say I want this to move down. Yeah, that's the beauty of curves. You can easily have a ton of control over what you model. So yeah, I'm thinking if I missed anything for curves, because curves is very important. So let me see, curves. I'm just making sure I got everything. I think that is pretty much it for curves. They are curves that are still being used in Surface, but it's more for the Surface tutorial. I'm going over more of how to create surfaces from the curve. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for this. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys on the next part.